So what do I think is hurting the Electronic Entertainment Expo? Let's talk about this topic in this video. So I would consider myself somebody who still gets really excited for E3. You know, it's a convention that I've been following for years. Many of the major gaming companies, some of the biggest gaming companies in the world, like Nintendo, Microsoft, Square Enix, Devolver Digital, they all go there and make some of the biggest announcements of the year at this expo. And it's still something I really get excited for. I'm definitely excited for E3 2020. But that's not to say E3 has been on this kind of death watch in recent years due to competing events as well as recent accidents that involve E3 that have happened fairly recently. So what exactly has been plaguing? Let's start off by talking about what's been plaguing E3 2020 specifically. So I'll start off by first saying one of the things is that Sony isn't going to E3 2020, just like how they skipped out last year. And also, Jeff Keighley isn't going to the event either. There's also been an accidental doxing of journalists and analysts on the E3 website, and even E3's own website was accidentally leaked. So what I think is also hurting E3 on top of all these other things that have been happening, not justifiable at all. If I had the opportunity to go to E3, just the fact that those leaks happen makes me kind of wary of going, at least for this year. You know, I would give E3 another chance. But what I also think has been hurting E3 over the years has been things like the recent rise of new events, both online and also in-person events, from competing events as well as even from the gaming companies themselves, with things like the Nintendo Direct events. In fact, Nintendo was, to my knowledge, one of the first companies to go from having major press conferences at E3 to doing mostly digital events. Things like the Nintendo Digital event, the Nintendo Treehouse live streams of upcoming games, and even last year's E3, they had a Nintendo Direct with some really big announcements there, like the sequel to Breath of the Wild was coming, as well as the Witcher 3 port, for instance. And even when you look at recent console launches, they had some major announcement events outside of E3, like the PS4 had a major event that was outside of E3. The Xbox One was announced at this really controversial event prior to E3. And even when you look at the Nintendo Switch launch, Nintendo first announced the actual system itself in a video that was released on their YouTube channel. And then they had this big event in Tokyo where they announced the pricing of the system as well as the release date. And the Switch would go on to have a really decent launch. And even the next generation consoles like the PS5 that was briefly discussed at an event at CES 2020, and even what was probably one of the biggest things to come out of the most recent Game Awards for me was the announcement of the Xbox Series X. That was also announced at a competing event, the Game Awards. So I think that E3 is losing ground to a lot of these companies' digital events as well as these new modern events like the Game Awards. Now, that's not to say that I don't enjoy the events myself. I'm personally somebody who still gets really excited for things like the Nintendo Directs, both outside of E3 and not at E3. And I know that a lot of people have been really excited for when is Nintendo going to do another Nintendo Direct, and I myself am one of those people as well. But I'm patiently waiting. But I definitely think these are things that have been hurting E3. And that's not to say that E3 over the years hasn't given some amazing announcements. You know, E3 was the event where the Nintendo DS was shown off all those years ago. It's still an event. You know, Nintendo has definitely had years worth of really great announcements at E3. I still remember that was where I found out about games like Animal Crossing City Folk, Wii Sports Resort, New Super Mario Brothers, Wii, so many other games for various Nintendo systems. There's just way too many to count in this video. And to be fair, E3 was the event where Microsoft and Sony announced the pricing for the PS4 and the Xbox One, and that was also the event where Sony showed off for the PS4, because when Sony had their prior event in February 2013, they used that event to talk more about like the vision of the PS4 as well as the controller. That was where Mark Cerny got up on stage and showed people this is what the DualShock 4. But E3 2013 was, to be fair, where we first got a look at what the PS4, the original one, was going to look like. Now, there's a Wired article I'll have linked down below in the description of this video, and it talks about how maybe E3 can go from being a trade show to being even more of a fan-centric event. And I know that in recent years, E3 has started to open itself to the public more and more, so really expensive. But Wired was suggesting, what if it became something and it became like a competitor to PAX East or BlizzCon? And to me, even though Wired said that E3 would still have a lot of competition going that route, I think if any kind of show is going to pull something like that off, I think E3 would be able to, because E3, it's still something that gets people really excited. It's still something in a lot of people's mind that some of the biggest announcements of the year in gaming still happen at E3. So if E3 were to go in a more fan-centric direction, I think that there's still some potential there, although I don't think it would make E3 that much more accessible. Even with all that's going on with things like the recent leakings and companies and people leaving E3, even with that stuff, I still think E3 has a big name, but my concern there is, would it basically turn into something like San Diego Comic-Con, where, yes, even though it's open to the public, it's very, very difficult to get in. Since I still think E3 is still a really big name and gets people more excited, I think if it were to open itself more to the public, that would mean that so many people would go, and it would make it really difficult to access. Although, knowing the Los Angeles Convention Center, I guess E3 could turn into another line con, much like another convention I used to go to at the LA Convention Center. But regardless, even though a lot of stuff has been hurting E3, and some of which I think the ESA should have been a lot more careful with things like the accidental doxing and the website leak, E3 is still an event that I still get excited for, and the ESA did say that companies like Nintendo, Ubisoft, and Bethesda are still going to E3 2020. I really hope Bethesda does a much better press conference, because last year's honestly was kind of a bore outside of the times where they talked about Doom Eternal, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and Ghost of Tsushima. So E3 is still definitely an event that gets me excited. Like I said earlier in the video, if given the opportunity, I don't really know if I'd go this year because of all the recent mistakes, recent accidents and mistakes that the ESA has made with E3. But personally, as long as companies still go and make some really major announcements, whether it be Nintendo having a Direct or Devolver Digital doing another really insane kind of live stream, although kind of like Nintendo, they do a lot of these pre-recorded videos, and I still think they're really funny. But as long as companies go and make major announcements, E3 is still something that I'm definitely going to get really excited for. I'm definitely looking forward to not just what Nintendo is doing, but I'm really excited to see what other companies do at E3 2020. We probably won't know what the PS5 is going to cost because Sony is not going to E3 2020, but I'm curious to see if Microsoft goes. Are they going to announce the Xbox Series X pricing and release it at this event, or are they going to do that at some other event, whether they do it at another major expo like Gamescom, or they pulled off at their own sort of event? I mean, we won't know until it happens, or if they pull off another major event. But E3 is still something I definitely get excited for. I just think that it does need to do some modernizing in order to stay relevant. So I'm curious to see what E3 does. So let me know your thoughts down below. Is E3 something you still get excited for? Or until next time, this has been Blood Moon Bobby, and thank you all for watching. Hi everyone, thanks for watching this Blood Moon Bobby video. Like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel to see more of my videos, and ring the bell to be notified about my latest uploads. Don't forget to follow me on social media for my latest opinions and video updates. I hope to see you next time.